Let's Science is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
3, 2, 1.
We live in a universe of scientific wonders.
Every day, scientists are inching towards breakthroughs which can change our lives.
We're playing our small part in sharing these wonders with you.
That's why today is a fine day for science.
So let's science.
So today, Lino, now you found this article, didn't you?
I was just crazy. It was crazy. I was like,
yeah.
Caroline asked, guys, what kind of science segments can we do? And I go, okay, I'll check it out. So as usual, people will Google. I Google the word science, and I go science.com, and came up with a couple of things, and then I saw this one, and I went, this will be interesting to talk about. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hopefully, not a groundbreaking thing that Caroline can totally find for you guys, for all your listeners. For us, I think it's something interesting to read.
There's I'm just warning everyone that there may be quite a few puns that come out of this, because this one is really this is food for thought, really, when you think about it.
Totally food for thought. Yep.
Yeah. So Lena, let's chew on this together, all right?
Totally chew.
Yep, and get some things out of it, because this this is from science.org, shared by Lino, and it says the headline is "Chewing burns more calories than you think, and may have shaped our evolution." So this is about, I like this. It's a study. To put a hard number on how much energy we use grinding our gums. So basically, what they, some scientists, kind of hypothesized the idea that, first of all, how much energy does chewing actually expend in the body? Does it use? And if that's the case, did chewing affect the evolution of the shape of the human face and of our gums, jawline, and the shape of our teeth as well? So, Lena, you ready to do a deep dive into this?
Oh no, we can try. We try.
All right. I'm sure you've been salivating to start, so let's get into it.
Oh, definitely gonna get my hubba bubba and start chewing on this one. Yeah.
All right, here we go. So, it says the following: when it comes to ways to burn calories, few people think about chewing, but about 3% of the daily energy we burn comes from grinding gum, gristle, and other goodies. This is what a new study finds. And you may burn even a little bit more than 3% if you chew on salads and celery sticks. So that's the first point. Lena, how often do you chew on a piece of celery?
I can't remember the last time I did chew on a celery.
Yeah, I can safely say never. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
However, I do know that people like to eat celeries with dips and things like that.
Dips and stuff, and salads, definitely in salads.
Carrots,
carrots.
So anyway,
exactly.
Yeah. Now, this 3% of energy burning or calorie burning is far less obviously than walking or even the act of digesting. Our body uses more energy digesting than it does chewing. However, it may have been enough to reshape the faces of our distant ancestors. So there was a study which adds concrete data to this and shows that it sort of contributes to the debate over reasons the human jaw is so different from those of our distant ancestors. So, primates and so on, whose jawlines are very different to the human jawline. Callum Ross, who works, who's an anatomist at the University of Chicago, wasn't part of this study, but did comment on it and said that this gives us numbers that we can start working with. By the way, this was a missed opportunity for him to say, this gives us numbers that we can chew on. But anyway, let's move on.
Yes, definitely.
I'm sorry, but, you're in the limelight. You want to be remembered for something. That would have been, that's a missed opportunity. I'm just saying. So scientists have hypothesized for a while that our jaw size, so the size of your jaw, and the shape of our teeth evolved to make chewing more efficient. All right. So this theory has been running around. So our hominid ancestors, so early primates and so on, shifted their diet to easier to chew foods. And this is because they developed tools over time. So for example, they developed technologies which could chop foods. So think of like early knives and stones and things like that. And even, as more time went on, learned how to cook foods as well. So when you are able to chop food up, it doesn't take as long to chew it. when you're able to cook it, it makes it softer, so you don't spend as much time chewing either.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, what it says here is that the chopping and the cooking reduce the time and effort spent on chewing then, so the jaw and tooth shape change with this and shrink compared to other primates. It doesn't need to be as big as it was before.
Exactly.
So that's the theory. That's the theory. So it says here, though, the data that's missing, though, is how much daily energy we expend on chewing. It's difficult to determine whether saving energy was also a factor in driving these evolutionary changes, says Adam van Kasteren, who's a biological anthropologist at the University of Manchester. So he did a test, all right, put it to the test, and here's the method they went with. They did a study where he and his colleagues put 21 men and women in a bubble-like helmet. Now, I can see a picture in front of me, right?
I can see it. When I saw this, I thought, is this some sort of science experiment for space?
It looks like an astronaut's almost, doesn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
To describe it, it's like a big plastic bubble, like a helmet. It's about probably 3 times the size of the head of the person that's in it. They're lying down on a bed. There's out of the helmet is like a plastic blanket that covers, around the edges, probably to contain and not let too much oxygen or CO2 leave, to be contained there. And then there are 2 hoses, one clear hose above the head and one clear hose sort of in proximity of the mouth. And he looks like an astronaut lying down almost. So this is the device that it looks almost like a 1-person cone of silence, which is probably the most useless thing you could ever create. But anyway,
oh my goodness me.
Yeah. Yep. So this device measured the amount of oxygen they consumed and carbon dioxide that they expelled. Exhaled. So the breathing in and breathing out of oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide comes out. That's how human respiration works. I hope I got that right, or human breathing at least. Anyway, so
breathe in, breathe out. Yep.
So the scientists gave the participants, and this is the part that I don't know. This is why I wouldn't want to participate. They gave the participants flavorless, odorless, calorie-free gum to chew for 15 minutes.
Oh my goodness me.
Yeah. So they had to lie there in a bubble, chewing on the most bland gum they could ever have. But there was a reason for this, right? There was a reason.
Yeah, definitely are.
So the gum had no odor, taste, or calories, so that it didn't trigger the digestive system, which also consumes energy. So they were trying to focus on the energy expelled just by the chewing motion. But if the digestive system activated or was triggered, then the data would have been off, because they would have been getting data from the energy expelled by digestion as well. So that's why they gave them something bland and boring. Yep. And I'm really hoping that they didn't put their chewing gum under the table when they were finished, because I hate that. I hate that so much. As a teacher, I hate that.
Yes.
I'm sorry, everyone, because this is disgusting. But the number of times I've moved a desk and felt something gooey under the desk, I have no words for how disgusting that is, how filthy it is. I'm just saying, all right? Just saying.
Aren't you meant to wear gloves, Linz, or no?
I'm not wearing gloves to teach. What's the point of, I don't need gloves to teach.
I know, but
Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So put your chewing gum in the bin, kids, all right? Yeah. Just saying, all right? Okay. Think of the teachers that have to move those tables. So moving on. So while chewing, the carbon dioxide levels in the volunteers' breath rose, which indicated their bodies were now working harder. So when the gum was soft, their metabolism rose an average of 10%, while when it was stiffer, it required 15% more energy than resting. So they said that's not huge, but it is significant, because you are seeing a difference in the amount of energy the body is using, to chew. So, obviously stiffer chewing gum, when you put chewing gum in your mouth and it starts to stiff, you chew harder and more often to soften it.
Chewing,
And once it softens, you don't chew as vigorously
hard
as you were before. Exactly.
Yeah.
So in these tests, the chewing gum represented less than 1% of participants' daily energy budgets. All right. So, and now the 3% comes from, chewing throughout the day, different meals and whatever. This was less than 1% because it was 15 minutes of chewing a boring brand of chewing gum.
15 minutes of chewing a boring Oh, wow.
Boredom doesn't freshen your breath. In fact, it doesn't do anything.
Do anything.
Boredom gum.
Boredom gum.
Don't buy it. So, and definitely don't leave it under a table. Yes. Basically, the chewing gum in a lab was essentially, however, a proof of the concept that they were going for. So there was some data in it. So before the advent of cooking and tool use, early humans probably spent a lot more time chewing. So if ancient people had spent as much time chewing gum as gorillas and orangutans do now, then the authors estimate that they could have used at least 2.5% of their energy budget chewing. So it says here, if you were eating harder foods and chewing longer, you'd end up with a far larger proportion of the total energy expenditure. So yeah. So at the moment, one scientist here, Henry, he's a bit more skeptical. That they were skeptical, but said of this study, I think it's a great study. It shows that there is a measurable energy amount of energy used. So I think some scientists were surprised that there was actually something going on with the chewing action. So these findings support the idea that more efficient chewing tailored to diet might have been an evolutionary advantage. So it says here, by saving energy in the chewing category, you may have more energy to spend on other things like rest, recovery, and growth.
Yeah.
So this could now reveal, could give us a glimpse into human evolution and also the evolution of other hominids. For example, and here we go, Australopithecus. I actually did practice this before the podcast. Australopithecus. All right, was a hominid.
I can't.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, early primate that lived in Africa between 2 and 4 million years ago. They had teeth with chewing surfaces 4 times larger than human beings and massive jaw muscles.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, and again, because they're not chopping or cooking food. So it says here they had to spend more time and energy chewing, on food in order to digest it. So it says here, Henry says here, they were presumably taking advantage of very energetically costly food. We have the first piece of evidence to explain that pattern. So that there was one other thing I wanted to mention here. So compared with Australopithecus, this is why we need Caroline because she can say these, or primates living today, humans are an outlier. So we're actually unique in this sense though, because it says here, we most likely, on average, spend 7 minutes a day chewing. So
7 minutes?
Yeah, on average.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That is true. On average, yeah.
So that means some people spend more and some people might spend less. But the average, so that's in a whole day. That's all the meals that you eat. So just 7 minutes a day chewing.
Okay.
However, by contrast, mountain gorillas can spend 90% of their waking time chewing. Okay,
wow.
And which is on par with goats and cows. Yeah, they spend most of their active day chewing. All right. Which, by the way, sounds like a great life. I would love to just stand in a field and chew on some grass all day.
Chew on some grass all day.
Enjoy the weather. Go to sleep. Wake up. Repeats. Yep. I'm kidding.
I have to worry about a lot of.
Less worries, Look, at least cows don't, put their chewed grass under a table. I mean, they're more, more sophisticated than some people I know. All right. So anyway, so it says here to finish off, Van Kasteren, who did the experiment, says modern humans are the weird ones. We have really soft foods. We're the weird ones because we consume much softer foods. So we have low chewing times. Our meal times are reduced because a lot of our food is generally softer. So reducing the amount of energy you're spending on chewing is the other element to these milestones in human evolution or in agriculture, where you're selecting foods that are less fibrous or chewy. And if you think about it, it's interesting because there are people, for example, who are on liquid diets or have more liquid in their diets. So they're chewing even less, they're swallowing, to be honest. So I think it's just interesting that that they were able to measure that maybe the human being, on estimate, burns about 3% of their 3% of the calories you burn in a day are just from the action of chewing. And this might have an answer to why human beings' jawlines, the shape of our face and the size of our teeth, and the set of our teeth, are different to other primates that exist today, and how we evolved from the earlier hominids into what we are today. So
that sort of makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a lot to chew on in this article.
Definitely to chew on, man. A lot to chew on.
There we are. So that's it. That's just a bite-sized piece of knowledge for you today.
Very bite-sized. Fun size.
Right.
Yeah.
Fun size. Yeah. All right. So anyway, before we turn people off, we'll stop there. So we'd love to know your thoughts. Yeah. Ever considered how much energy you're expending when you're chewing? How often do you think you chew per day? That's what I'd like to ask our listeners. How often do you chew?
That'd be interesting.
Are you chewing? How much of the day in minutes do you spend chewing?
Let's Science is brought to you by StarQuest Media and is a fortnightly podcast that brings you the scientific wonders of our universe from a distinctly Catholic point of view. For more from Caroline, Lindsay, and friends, listen to the StarQuest show, Catholics of Oz. Find links from today's show at sqpn.com/science and find the Catholics of Oz at sqpn.com/Oz. Be sure to follow the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you can find podcasts, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. The generous donations of our patrons at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Let's Science and all the shows at StarQuest, which makes our nonprofit mission possible. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Join us next time for more scientific wonders, and thank you for listening to Let's Science on StarQuest. StarQuest wants to hear from you. We're conducting a survey of our audience. That's you, to help us in our planning for the future. Please take a moment and visit sqpn.com/survey. We'll be selecting 2 participants to receive an Amazon gift card as an expression of our thanks. So visit sqpn.com/survey today.